I'm going to get right down to business here. And please welcome my old buddy, a true mover and shaker in the drum industry, Mike Dolbear.
I missed the
And there you
intro.
are.
I missed the intro.
You missed the
Nice
intro.
t-shirt, John.
Yeah, well, thanks, Mike. I mean, I can't believe I didn't think of wearing this earlier. I'm proud to,
I have
you know,
to just say though, when that t-shirt or that logo has been out for 22 years, ever since MikeDolbear.com started, and the amount of people that think that that's meant to be me. Now, how far away could they be? Look at it.
well, I think it's a pretty good likeness.
I never looked like that. Ever did I look like that? Anyway, cheers.
Cheers, buddy. It's good to see you. Thanks for
Thank
thanks for
you.
taking time. I know this is probably the dinner hour for you or thereabouts, right? It's 6 o'clock there, so thank you.
Early dinner for you, John. I paced myself.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. So man, it's so good to see you. It's nice to see you on this side of it for a change because you had me on your great Instagram show back 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, in the midst of 2020 when it was all sort of upon us, and honestly, back then I thought, I got to have Mike on my show, and it's just taken a little while to make it happen, but it's good to see you.
Well, and you've done it from your drum room. I thought I'd do it from my drum room as well. Although you're getting more of the electronic kit, so we've got the. Let's just prove there is a drum kit here. Okay, so so we're both from our own drum rooms,
Yes,
and, and you're doing a great job as well, John. You know,
thank you.
I always knew that when you left your previous job, there's no way that you could stay out of this industry. That was never going to happen. I knew that. So it's good to have you around and part of it all.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate that. I well, we've known each other a long time, and we work together a lot, and yeah, I guess not. This is about you today. It's not about me, but I'll just say that yeah, when I get out of the drum industry, I think I knew in the back of my mind I probably wouldn't be out 100% or forever, but I kind of like the way it is now. It's just kind of perfect. So
Mm.
yeah, it's
No,
good.
well, I have to say as well that 22 years ago when I set up the .com, obviously I'm a little bit older than 22 years old. I've been around a long time, but when I changed direction, stopped touring, etc., and wrote the book and decided to go with the set the website up. I remember coming out to my first NAM show, and it was a horrendous experience because no one wanted to talk to me. Everyone I went up to, anyone I looked at, anyone I spoke to about a website, and they were like, "What? No, no, we've all done that before. 10 years previous, we all had our fingers burnt. No, no, not interested." And there was two people that actually gave me any time of the day. Now, I often wonder whether that was because the two booths were next to each other, okay, or whether the first person that gave me the time of the day happened to be your father-in-law. I don't know, but Vic Firth was the first one that gave me the time of day and listened to what I had to say and supported me all the way. And then you were the next person. Like I said, I
Wow.
don't know if it was Vic threatened you or what had happened, um,
He may
but
have.
but you were the only two at the beginning that
Wow.
were just a sort of got it, even though no one had really done it. I think Drummers World was around, but it was a different theme, and sort of got what I was trying to do and what I was trying to promote. And as Vic, um, bless his soul, was supported me all the way.
Yeah.
But I have to say, you also the same year. Like I said, I'm not too sure if you looked over the booth and you saw Vic talking to me and thought, "Whoa, what's going on here?" or whether Charlie Watts had phoned you up and said, "Listen, there's this ball." I don't know, but whatever it was good. So thank you, John.
Oh, well, it's thank you for my pleasure, Mike. I mean, I think it all worked out pretty well, all things considered, because I wouldn't have remembered the exact number of years, but I remember meeting you at that NAM show, and I remember you, honestly, and I remember more than anything your sincerity coming across, and especially at a time in a in a situation like the NAM show where there's so much, we both know, so much bullshit that people throw out at you, and I just got a very sincere, like, you and I remember you being, how I know you now, as a confident guy. Like, you had a vision of what you wanted to do, what you had, kind of what your idea was, and I thought it was worth kind of, aligning and putting our zillion eggs in your basket, so to speak. So
Well, it's
yeah.
interesting you say that, because if there's anyone watching this or anyone listening to this going forward, I wasn't a confident guy. I don't think there's many drummers that actually are confident. Okay, even those ones that you see are big and brash.
Hmm.
I think that I always struggled. I struggled at school. Years later, they then they put a diagnosis on it and say, "Oh, you're dyslexic." But at school, I was told I was stupid and I was thick, and so I had to find a place.
Mm.
As bizarre as that sounds, and I'm sure that a lot of people can identify with that. And I was very fortunate that I had an amazing music teacher come into my school when I was about 13 years old, that saw something in me drum related, and then I found I had a place. But whatever I did, I had to work at it. Even the drumming, whatever it was, I'd had to work hard. Now, whether that was because I struggled at school and I'd learned how to have to work through things. So fast forward to the start of MikeDolbear.com, which is a big gap. I was lucky enough to be able to be a professional player. I
Hmm.
played for all those years, and then I made that decision when my kids came along, that I wanted to be around, which was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I moved into more education. I wanted a little bit more control. But where we're talking about here with MikeDolbear.com, I mean, my original business partner, Jerry, who was an ex-student of mine, when he talked about this, I was like, well, I have no idea about this. My spelling's atrocious. How can I run a website? How can I, not even spell check understands what I'm saying. So how can, so I wasn't confident, to be honest. And I'm still not confident with things I do. I question myself all the time. I've learned over the years not to listen so much to people that maybe just give you bullshit. There's
Hmm.
people I think you
Yeah.
learn within this industry that you have respect for, and you're going to get the truth from. We've had good conversations.
Yeah.
Vic was incredible for that. You know, sometimes with things you didn't want to hear, but actually you were like, okay, that's interesting. So I've had to learn all the way, and even back to when you said about getting you on for the live Instagram at the beginning of COVID lockdown, which, as you said, was a couple of years ago now. So many of my friends, I mean, and I class them as friends, big international drummers. And the reason that they're my friends is because that's the society I move in. It's
Hmm.
not that I've gone out to, they become friends because I want celebrities as friends. That just happens to be the circle we get into. And as you know, because you're in that circle, they become your friends. You like some, you
Yeah.
don't the others. But so many people were hurting in so many ways that I just thought I've got to do something. And I set up those live Instagrams. I think I originally thought that we were going to be in lockdown for about, certainly in the UK, were told 3 months.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember doing a live Instagram with Matt Halders from the Arctic Monkeys. And this was probably, I'd done about 30 at this stage. And I saw the numbers in the top right hand corner just spinning. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, oh, what's distracting me? What's going? I had no. I swear I didn't have no idea what that meant. I didn't know what the numbers meant. I didn't know if anyone was in watching us or nobody was in watching us. And it wasn't until afterwards that I got a load of messages from various people, and I said to someone, I said to one of my students, what does the number mean at the top? Or they may have even said to me, God, you had like 10,000 people in looking at that. I was like, how do you know? With that number, that top right hand, it was the first. So I sort of was winging it, to be totally honest with you, because I did it because, like I tried to do with I have a simple ethos with MikeDolbear.com, and it's the way that I try to run everything I do now, and that is I want to promote drumming. I want to get more people playing the drums, and I want to promote drumming. It's up to the industries to say these are the products you're going to play, this is what you're going to do, blah blah blah. I just want to create more drummers. I want to just promote drumming because I love drumming. It gave me something to do because I probably would have ended up being in the building trade, followed my dad into his business if I didn't have that music teacher that gave me that chance. And so coming back to your point,
Mm-hmm.
it's nice that you say about me being confident, but I'm not. I'm actually not very confident. I struggle with people coming at me and giving me loads of compliments. I'm almost like that smart ass that wants to say something stupid. But that's my mechanism in dealing with it.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that you know as well as anybody, you know, if you really sit down and think about all these great drummers, there's not many of them that are actually confident. They're confident when they're behind the drum kit, and they sort of are like, oh, I know where
yeah.
I'm at now. But they're not. They're not, because we're not used to it, are we? Even if you're, you know, Charlie Watts, you know, again, bless his soul, Charlie Watts with the Rolling Stones. We all look at Charlie Watts as being, wow, it's Charlie Watts. But within the band, he's not the main figure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone wants to
Yeah.
talk to the rest of the guys. So I think it's, like I said, it's nice. And anyone that's listening to this, I think it's important that we do. First of all, it's okay to not have all the answers. Like I said, I was embarrassed about the fact for years, maybe up till about 10 years ago. I was embarrassed about the fact that maybe, you know, my dyslexia caused me many problems. And my maths is amazing, by the way. But my dyslexia was a problem. And then now I'm like, well, actually, you know, I'm in my 50s now. It's my responsibility to tell other people that are going through the same issues or whatever issues they're going through. There's a lot of stuff going on for the younger generation. You know, just work hard, be nice, and you're going to get on.
Yeah.
Um,
Mike, I had no idea really. I mean, in terms of you having dyslexia and I'll just say, all the power to you and kudos to you for overcoming it and finding your way through, all the other things in life to get to where you are, with some things that you had to deal with. Because I honestly, you did strike me as a guy that had a real vision. And when I said confident, I just felt like, you didn't, I don't remember you being the least bit unsure of what you were trying to explain, what you were trying to do. So, and I was very impressed by that, and I was threatened by Vic too. I'll admit it now, all these years later. He did. No, he
Well, you
didn't.
know, unfortunately, you know, a lot of today's conversation is going to go round for Vic for various reasons. Number one, because, like I said, he was dear to my heart, and number two, because you married his daughter, and so I have to keep an eye on you now.
I know.
I feel like it's my responsibility to watch over you now to make sure you're behaving yourself.
I know. No, I know.
But
He adored you too. He really, that. You were so great to him. You were just so great to him, and he appreciated it. And I think of all those times I remember. Well, I want to talk about some of the things that you do and that you have done throughout the years, and starting with your playing, your teaching is kind of really your main focus
yeah, it's my
these
money.
days.
Yeah,
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 that's
yeah.
your main occupation.
Well,
And
John, to be honest with you, it always has done. You know, MikeDolbear.com again was just a distract. MikeDolbear.com originally was set up to sell my book. I wrote a
yeah,
book. I wasn't interested in the publishing rights that were being offered to me by various companies. And so I decided I was going to set up a way that I could sell it myself. And that
hmm
was the start of the website. And then Jerry got in contact with me. Like I said, he'd been a student of mine, and he just told me he'd just left college doing website designs. And I said, look, I've got this idea. This is what I want to do. And we ran with that. And then we decided to get contributions from people that were looking at it and just write for it. It was there for the drummers. Like I said, the teaching happened for me about 25 years ago, properly. I've always been a player. I was really, really fortunate. I wasn't the greatest player. And again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. I was always someone that I always had to work hard. Whatever I've done, I've had to work hard. Um, my dad probably taught me that. My parents taught me that. You know, he was a builder, worked in the building industry, self-employed. So I guess we were out working with him, etc., etc. So when I knew that music teacher, Andy Oster, that had that massive impact on me and said, right, okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. This is what I was dealing with. The teacher before that, actually, I remember going through the class and asking everyone what instrument they played. And everyone would go, violin, trumpet, trombone. He got to me, what do you play? He said, drums. He went, no, what proper instrument do you play? And I was like, oh. No, I mean, I was like 12, 13 years old. And it was like, oh, okay, right, well, I don't know. I didn't know it wasn't a proper instrument. Anyway, the next music teacher that came along, who was about 6'4", was a semi-professional rugby player. Now, you think that your football, as you call it in America, is tough. These guys go out without the helmets, without the padding. Rugby's tough.
Yes.
Okay, so he was a rugby player, and he almost demanded respect. And he said, right, okay, you're in the jazz band, you're in the pop band, you're in the orchestra, you're in this, you're in that, you're doing it all. Okay, so I maybe without it sounding too bizarre, all of a sudden I felt like I had a place. It was like, oh, I'm not that smart ass kid that you're trying to be smart but it's not very good in any classes, etc., etc. I've got something I can, and I loved music. You know, I'd always enjoyed music. So I was playing in bands, from proper bands, from 13, 14 years old. You know, some of those guys that I was in school with then, I'm still friends with now. They're still professional musicians. So it's a testament to that music teacher. So again, without changing the subject too much, it goes back to somebody having a connection with you that believes in you, which hopefully people can who are watching and listening to this can understand that, you know, whoever it is. So yeah, I was fortunate that I sort of just went into the music industry. I was lucky enough to get gigs, work, etc., etc. And I sort of dabbled. I was always fascinated by learning. Again, we've talked about this before because I was fortunate enough to have quite a few teachers, but I studied with the great Kenny Clare.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got a picture of him on my wall still to this day, a signed photo of him. And Kenny just blew my mind with the way that he talked, the way that he carried himself, and the way that he played. It was just unbelievable. And that was it. I mean, I think I got maybe a teaching bug from him, because all of a sudden, what happened with Kenny, I would have been about 17 when I first went to Kenny, 17, 18 years old, if I remember rightly. And I was playing. And so again, let me just backtrack. I wanted to go to a music college when I left school. And in the UK, you leave school 15, 16 years old, or you did then, and then you can stay on for an extra 2 years. And I wanted to go to Leeds Music College. But to get into Leeds Music College, you needed an English O level at that time. So not knowing that I had, you know, dyslexia and I was struggling, etc., etc., I stayed on for 1 year at school. And during that 1 year, I realised I probably would have been at school now, and I still wouldn't have come out of that A level. So I was absolutely devastated. I couldn't get into this music college, and I thought, that's it. I'm not a serious musician, you know, all that sort of stuff. And my dad met Kenny at a gig, hooked up some lessons, and we drove up to London. We were living in 2 hours away on the south coast at the time. We used to go up for lessons, and Kenny just talked about music. And it was the first time that he made me make sense of all that stuff that you do technically doesn't mean anything if you can't play it musically. And that was it. That was the light bulb moment for me. It made me question everything. It made me always, you know, I always say to my students, the question you're asking is not how did you play that, but why? Why did Steve Gadd play 50 Ways to Love Her? We all know what it is now. We've seen everyone else's version of it. We know Jeff Porcaro's Rosanna, but why? Why were they were the guys that played it? And Kenny made me think like that. So I was fascinated with teaching and his concepts. Unfortunately, Kenny passed a couple of years after that. I hadn't finished learning. I decided I was still playing. I was professional, but I studied with Max Abrahams. But but then I was very fortunate that I worked, I played. I never got into that band and became that drummer. I was always the guy that was moving from gig to gig, you know. But I always worked, and then I ended
Hmm.
up in town in London, the Talk of London, the old Talk of the Town. I ended up being there unfortunately, for 10 years. I intended to go in there for 2 years, but my wife was a dancer there, and that was it, John. I ruined her career, she ruined mine. Um, but I stayed there for 10 years, but that was like 6 nights a week, sight reading charts.
Yeah.
So when we came to the end of that, I sort of had some offers to go back out on the road with a few bands, but I got comfortable being in London, my stuff, gear set up all the time, and I could go off and do some sessions and other stuff during the day. That I was like, right, what what can I do now that I can control it? You know, I was in my 30s at this stage, so I felt like I've done the touring, and as fun as it was, it's the 2 hours of playing was great, but the 22 hours of getting to the gig was not fun.
Yeah.
And that's where the teaching came from. I originally got approached by a record company called Kitchen Records, which is a UK record company that I'd done some sessions with, and they had a particular drummer over, a Californian band that I won't name. The drummer was struggling, and they said, "Look, can you come in and show him what to do?" Which I found completely bizarre. So I went in, and he was doing stuff that I was like, "Wow, why are you doing that? Has no one ever shown you how to do this or that?" And then I got him through it. And to be honest with you, anyone could have done it. It was a lucky break for me because it wasn't anything technical that I did to him. But then that's it. Now you're that guy.
Yeah.
And then I really studied how to teach. I studied how we think, how everyone's an individual. Maybe again, went back to me in a school, being 35 kids in a class. You can't give them a syllabus and everyone is going to learn that syllabus the same way, because everyone thinks differently. Some people like us are more artistic, and as much as I love being artistic, we think different.
Right.
We the reason you couldn't leave the industry is because that's the way you were wired. Unfortunately, that's what you. So I realised, right, okay, there's various ways of learning, and that fascinated me. So I mean, to be honest, I read, I studied a lot, I spoke to a lot of people, and I decided if I'm going to teach and start building up a teaching, I want to. Number one, that's what I want to do. And I've got, this is no disrespect to those that are doing other things, but I didn't want to be a teacher that taught for 6 weeks, then went on tour for 6 months,
Yeah.
then come back.
Yep.
I was like, right, if I do this, I've got to commit to it, and I've got to learn, because I didn't know enough about the way that we think, the way that we play. At the end of the day, we play the drums because we want to play along to our favourite records. Simple. We don't
Hmm.
play the drums. There is no drummer out there that is playing the drums because they love the sound of a single stroke roll or a paradiddle. Nobody. And so I realised that quickly. And I think, again, went back to Kenny. Kenny said that you learn to play music first, then you learn, actually, I need the chops to play the music I want to play. And my hands aren't good enough. Oh, so what's this then? Oh, what's this single? So that was my ethos, if you like. It was like, right, okay, that's what I've got to do. Um, and that I've been very, very lucky with students. I've got some amazing students that have stuck. Some been with me a long, long time, that have got, like, Cherise Osei and
Yeah.
Emily
Talk,
Dolan
talk.
Davis. And
I made a note, just to talk about some of your students, Mike, because I think
yeah,
for folks in the U.S. maybe watching this, they may not realize who some of these students are and how successful they've become and how they attribute it, so much of it, to you. So you mentioned Emily Dolan Davis and Charisse and
well, first of all, John, and I'm not contradicting what you just said there. I always say to my students, well, this is an open thing. My dad might even be watching this, by the way. My dad always used to say to me, "You can't polish a turd." Now, I don't know if you know what that means.
oh, I do.
Okay, okay, right. Well, there you
I
go.
live by it.
Okay, so your student has got natural talent. Okay, they've got natural talent, and it's. I appreciate that my students have said that, you know, I've helped them out. Same as I guess with Kenny, etc., etc. But they, you know, they had the talent, they had those things that I talked about, they had
Sure.
that drive, you know, because unfortunately our music industry is full of disappointments, you know. And I always say it's like being Mike Tyson. You know, there's no way Mike Tyson got into that ring and all of a sudden was knocking everybody down. Of course he
Mm.
didn't. He got knocked over, and it
Hmm.
was how many times do you want to get back up again and have another go until so Emily Dolan Davis and Charisse both came to me when they were 15 years old. I remember it very, very clearly. They were having lessons with another student of mine at the time, Rob Stevens, who unfortunately is not with us anymore. And he took them through all their exams. And then Rob said to me, look, these girls have been busting my chops. Their parents have been busting my chops that they want to come to you for some lessons. Now I think they're ready. And they used to come together as well. And that was the first thing. I was like, right, you two, you know, you're not going to get a gig together. So straight away, let's do this. And I love those two girls, and they are
Yeah.
a classic example of what I'm trying to say. Because if I taught both of those girls exactly the same way, then it probably wouldn't have worked out for one of them. Okay, they are both two different personalities. I have to also say, on record, girls are so much easier to teach than boys, and the reason they're better than boys or to teach is they come with a natural posture. They already know how to, especially at
Mm.
that age, they know how to hold themselves. So
Yeah.
they've already got all their weight in their upper body, where boys turn up and they're like this. So the first thing you've got to do is, oh god, I've got to straighten them up. So you never had to work with those. I mean, Charisse is a little bit smaller than Emily, so Charisse has had to learn. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, and plus, females are smarter than males too. Let's not forget that.
We know that, and they can
We know
multitask
that.
better than you know. I live in a
Yeah.
house with three girls. In fact, the dog's a girl. I live in a house with four girls, so you know. Um,
Yeah. You know what I
but
mean. Yeah.
exactly, but Charisse is quite a bit smaller than Emily, so again, we had to teach her to play the Charisse Osei. So for those that don't know Charisse Osei, she's currently on tour with Simple Minds. She's worked with Mika, Kylie Minogue. I mean, I'm going to miss too many. So Emily
Yeah.
Dolan Davis has worked with The Darkness. She's currently doing The Voice Kids in the UK. Um, she's working with Kim Wilde. So yeah, but it was funny that both of them came along as best friends. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and it, like I said, my point being that you can't take two students and go right. This is the system that works because you know what, that system doesn't work for everybody. You've got to
Yeah.
work out how you connect with those students. And I'd like to also think that maybe what I do is I listen, bizarrely enough, because over the last 2 years, all I've had to do is talk because of Instagram. Um, but I do. I listen to students. We talk about stuff. I feel like I'm a therapist, you know, because I always try to say to them, look, if there's any of them, anybody, you know, sort of like the same with all the Young Drum of the Year finalists, you know, when the going gets tough and you really want to talk to people, you need someone to talk to. You know, this isn't an easy industry. It's a
Right.
very emotional industry, and I think maybe that's why maybe some of these students are very complimentary to me, if you like, because I'm sure if they went to other teachers, they could have got the same
Well,
skill sets that I gave them.
I suppose, but I think you're being very humble because I think you hit the nail on the head, Mike, when you said you've got to look at each person individually, and you've obviously, tailored the way that you approach your teaching to each person rather than a blanket approach that, like you said, Charisse might have got it, but Emily might not have got it the same way, and then one benefits and the other doesn't. And I've seen that happen with people that have taken lessons where maybe they just didn't connect with their teacher completely, and didn't maybe get the full benefit of a really great teacher. So, but I just want to say, when you were talking about all this stuff, this is what you were meant to do. It really is. I mean, obviously you're still a drummer. I mean, I know you still go out and do gigs on occasion, right? You
Well, I've
still go out.
stopped now. I stopped at the beginning of COVID, to be honest. I mean, I'm probably like you, John. I look back and I go, wow, how many gigs over the years have I done? The reason I stopped though was because I've got osteoarthritis now in my shoulder,
Oh, oh,
which is fine. It
yeah,
doesn't affect anything, but it affects anything from above there. So actually playing the drums is not an issue. There's no problems. Probably my cymbals are a little bit lower than they used to be, but that's fine. But it is carrying your stuff in and out of the
yeah,
gig.
yeah.
And I think that maybe if I really wanted to, if something came along now and I went, I really want to do that, then yes, I would do it.
Hmm.
So for example, I'm going to be, so when I teach at the drum camp, I'm doing a drum. I'm out in Greece at the lab camp next month, with Horacio El
Mm.
Negro Hernandez, which is Spavin, Gergo Boyle's on it, and George Calais. That'd be easy. I could do that, but it's the getting the stuff in and out. But I think maybe I got to this stage where I was like, you know what, I don't want to do those gigs. I don't want to do that particular gig anymore. I don't. There's nothing against them, but I don't want to do the function gigs anymore. I've been doing them since I was 14 years old,
Yeah.
and I was over it. So COVID forced everybody. No one gigged. I don't think. I used to say this analogy to my students when students would come to me and go, "Oh, I haven't had a gig for a year." I was like, "Steve Gadd hasn't had a gig for a year, so if he hasn't had one, none of us are going to get one." Or, you know, so
Yeah,
we use
I
him as
know.
he's the top of the pyramid, and no one's had a gig. So yeah, so maybe I lost a little bit of. Again, goes back to what I said. The whatever 4 or 5 hours getting to the gig, doing
Yeah.
the gig, coming home. Maybe I lost that a little bit, and I did. So I'm not at the moment. I'm not actually doing gigs. On that note, just to say something, I've been really conscious of not being the drum teacher who doesn't do a gig anymore. I work hard on practicing music still, because there's personally,
Yeah.
and again, I'm not saying I'm right and other people are wrong, but I'm trying to teach students to be musicians. I'm trying to teach students to get gigs. So I'm not going to suddenly change my way of playing and learn very complicated licks that you're never going to do on a musical gig. So at least once a week, I'll sit in here and I'll put a song list on for 2 hours and play it.
Great.
Just
Yeah.
because I want to play music. And it goes back to Kenny. That's what Kenny did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kenny had me playing, like many people have talked about over the years, on various other drummers do it. Freddie Freeloader, Miles Davis playing quarter notes on the cymbals, and that's all you're allowed to play for 9 minutes. And making it musical, and that's ingrained in me. So now I put on, and if the song just goes ooh, gosh, ooh, gosh, that's it. That's where it's going to stay, and it's not moving. I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
So I try to now incorporate at least once a week a couple of hours of a song list as though I'm going to a gig, except I just walk in my studio.
That's great. No, you're still connected to it. That's
Mm,
and I guess I remembered. I guess it was over 2 years ago. I remember seeing on whether it was an Instagram post or something, or maybe even you and I were in touch via an email, and you'd be like, "I'm off to my gig and talk to you next week" or something. And but I totally get it. I do. And I'll just say quickly that when the COVID thing started to lift, when gigs started to come back the first time about a year ago, we had a couple of false starts, but my band started working again, and it's weird. I think I know. I think you were saying this, or maybe I misunderstood what you were saying. But what I started to feel was, after not doing it for so long, you'd think that there'd be this pent up, like, can't wait to do it. But it's almost like I sort of reached this point of like, yeah, you know what? Schlepping all the gear yeah, I'm more sore the next day
yeah,
from carrying my equipment than actually physically playing. I have shoulder pain and all those things, but I just remember thinking I'm sort of out of practice with it, and mentally I'm not. It was weird, and now that we're working more now, I'm kind of back into it a little bit more. I'm more into a groove with it, but it was almost like I'd resigned myself from it, And I was like, yeah, maybe I've played as many gigs as I'm going to play in my lifetime, which is, like you say, you and I mean, I think we're the lucky ones that have played probably more than a lot of people.
Mm.
Um, and so anyway, I know what you're saying. It becomes a different animal at a time,
Yeah,
all the things.
and it's interesting what you just said there, because again, a lot of my students now that are out working, the mental aspects was the part. I mean, a lot of stuff that I did with a lot of drummers, like Steve Forrest with Placebo, um, their issues weren't, again, they weren't technical. Okay, we can always improve, all of us. If we, whatever we do, when like I said earlier, when I went online, I learned how to do this. I learned how to communicate online. We can always improve.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously that means the same for drummers. But Steve Forrest was an example where we were finding that 40 minutes into the show, it was a 2 hour show, but 40 minutes into the show, it the sound man was like, oh, the sound, he's drums are all over the place anymore. He hasn't got the energy levels. And
Mm.
you think about this. I mean, there's scientific evidence to say that if you're playing a stadium show now, it's the equivalent to playing a top football soccer match or football match. Okay, it's the top, except they have a 45-minute match, certainly UK football, your soccer, and then 15 minutes off, and then they start again. So it's the equivalent to that, except you're doing it every night.
Yeah.
You're not doing a gig and then you've got 6 nights off to relax and then you start again. You're certainly not earning the money that the sportsmen are earning. But mentally, that's the problem. It's draining. Mentally, it's the draining. And I always remember Kenny again used to say this, that Kenny used to say, I mean, Steve Smith talks about this a lot, that this is my volume. When I start, this is my volume. And that volume doesn't change before
Hmm.
in 2 hours' time. It doesn't matter where the song's going. I'm going to give you this volume, and this is the balance of my kit. Mr. Soundman, all you have to do is turn up the master. If you want more drums, just turn the master up. But you don't need to, I've got it for you, okay? And it's interesting how so many drummers would mentally come out and they go for it those first 2 3 songs, and it's all over the place, and then they settle in a little bit, but now the sound man's going, oh God, I've got to mix and the singer's like looking around because the tempo, and it seems logical, but that's a mental thing that we're thinking about. I
Yeah.
mean, a simple thing that I always used to say to all my students, again, especially at the moment, was go and find somewhere 5 minutes before you walk on that stage. Don't walk out on that stage like you're going out. If you watch the boxers, when they walk onto that, or any sportsman, when they're walking onto the field, they're in the zone. Okay.
Mm.
So don't
Hmm.
walk out there high fiving the audience. Your heart's getting faster and faster. You sit down on the drum kit, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, hang on. I mean, everyone again is used to use him, but we have to. We all need to be like Steve Gadd. Steve Gadd's just cool all the time, isn't he? And I always say,
Yeah.
go find a corner, sing the first song in your head over and over again, get that tempo, walk on that stage, move in tempo of that song, sit down at your drum phone, put your headphones on if it's a click or whatever, and you've just spent 5 minutes in the zone. And then when that first song comes, bang, you're in it, and that's it.
That's
The
great.
singer knows that you've got his back or her back. The guitarist whose tempos are crap anyway, he knows, oh, okay, this is going to be all right. The bass player's obviously one of us, so they're like, well,
Yeah.
I knew you had it anyway. So you've just got everyone's confidence, and I don't
Yeah.
care whether
Yeah.
you're playing in a school playground, or if you're in a pub, or if you're at Madison Square Gardens. It's the same mentality. You, as a drummer, you're driving the bus. You know, everyone get on. I got this. Don't worry.
That's great.
You know,
That's great. And you were describing me in my 20s, by the way, when you were talking about, coming out and, "Wah!" And then tempos everywhere and, dynamics out the window. But no, I know, and what I learned from Steve too, just from watching him and talking to him too, but, like breathing is so important
yeah,
too, as you say, like just even as before you even sit down to play, just kind of getting like how that can really sort of affect your tempo and just allow you to really get a good feel for it, your
mm,
biorhythms and everything. And yeah, no,
yeah.
that's great. That's great advice, great information, Mike.
And I think that a lot of drummers that are back out on the road at the moment, especially with there's a lot of issues that people are dealing with on the road. You know, it's a little bit harder than it used to be. It's great. We love being back out, or they love, but you know, we're still dealing with COVID. Don't like to talk about it on here, but we've also got this thing over in the UK called Brexit that we're dealing with and trying to work out that.
Yeah.
And that's affecting our industry. It's affecting people getting around. So they've got a lot of other issues now, especially if you're a band member. If you're you know, the side man, it's a little bit easier. But if you're the band member as well, you know, you're concerned. Okay, have we covered the bills today? You know, etc. etc. They've got other things to think about than just being the drummer. So as I just said, I try to always say to them, just don't forget when you sit on that drum phone what your role is. Okay, so just go in there in the zone.
Yeah.
You know,
That's great. Great advice. I want to
that's £50, please.
No, I want to talk about, we were just talking offline and we'll bring it online now, that this is 10 years ago, the 2012 Summer Olympics in London. Remember it well. It was my last year working in the industry.
Wow,
And
was it 10 years ago? Wow.
10 years, yeah, I know. Crazy. It'll be, yeah, end of this year. But talk about how how you were tasked or asked, I should say, to organize the thousand drummer for the Olympic opening ceremony, and just some of these things that you've done that have just been unbelievable.
Well, so the Thousand Drummers, for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's still on YouTube. It's the first bit. It's the Pandemonium Drummers, it was called. And so Danny Boyle, the great Danny Boyle, train spotter, director, he was given the task of being the director of the opening ceremony. And he wanted drummers. That was the first thing he said. I want 1,000 drummers. He said, I don't know what I want them to do. I don't know what I want them to play, but I want 1,000 drummers. I want that energy. I want that excitement. You know, everything we just talked about that drummers deliver. You know, again, sorry if there's any guitarists watching, but there's no way you'd ever get 1,000 guitarists doing that. So he wanted that. And don't forget, they were also volunteers. So these 1,000 drummers were volunteers. They gave up their time, as were, I think, 9,000 people that were involved in that opening ceremony. Okay, so the professional cast, I guess, if you want to call it like that. So it wasn't my gig originally. Ralph Salmins, the great Ralph Salmins, who I've known for years. I've known him. We're both the same age, and I've known him since he was about 17 years old. He was given the task, or originally when Danny Boyle said that's what I want, but there was no other brief. They called Ralph in and asked him about it, and he went, well, he said, I don't really know what to do. At this stage, it was the audition stages. He said, but, you know, I've got a mate that maybe we could get him involved. So Ralph asked me, I got on board. And like I said, at this stage, we had to audition. I think there was about 3,000 volunteers that had just seen in the newspaper that they had to have rhythmic skills. That was it. So we did 3 days of auditions. And I mean, I'm condensing this, but I mean, working in that condition, you know, you've got the best of the best. You had the best people for moving a lot of people around. You had the best people doing this, the best. I mean, it was just incredible. So we were in a big film studio, and I was in one room, Ralph was in another room, and I think there was a dancer, in another room. And basically, we already come up with this concept that we get 20 professional drummers that could walk around with a pen and paper and mark them up. And I think 100 drummers came in at a time. They stuck them on. They all marked out on the floor. And then I gave them some instructions. And I realised pretty quickly that, okay, they haven't got any drumming skills. Some of them did, but they didn't have any drumming skills. And then there was a lot of nonsense going on. And I hadn't met Danny Boyle at this stage. I think he might have shook my hand, but he was just part of a big entourage of about 100 people sitting behind me. anyway, we get into again. I'm not. I was work. So the Olympics is owned by a body, a corporate company, and at the time it's called LOCOG. Okay, and so the person that was in charge of that LOCOG entertainment side, he was running all these auditions. Anyway, after about 4 days, I said to Ralph, I can't. I'm not doing this. It's terrible. I said the standard's terrible. No one knows what's going on. I said I don't want to do it. And I came out of it. I walked, and Ralph did the same. And I remember coming to the NAM show, and we done about 3 or 4 auditions, and I can't remember how many drummers we'd put through at that stage, but and I was out at the NAM show, and there was a little bit of a buzz. So the other thing about the UK is that the UK, we always think everything's going to be rubbish, and the Olympics was going to be absolutely rubbish. The media were already destroying it. We spent too much money on it. It's going to be rubbish. And although I wasn't doing it for Mike Dolbear, and my name wasn't going to be on the tin, if you like, because of my MikeDolbear.com, I knew that people would know that I was involved. So
Yeah.
I walked, and then I come back from the NAM show, and I get a phone call from Claire, who was Danny's personal assistant, and she said, Danny wants to see you. And I said, oh, I've walked, I'm not doing it. And she said, no, we know. But again, English expression, I don't know if it means anything in the US, but Danny's thrown his toys out the pram, which means he's had, and he done this on a regular basis for good causes, I have to say.
Yeah.
And he said to he said to Local, right, no, I'm only doing this if I bring in my team. If I don't have my team, I'm out. I don't want to do it. So of course they said, all right. So he brought in many people into the fold, and I went down and met him, and he showed me the animation of his plans, which was like, wow, okay. And he told me what he was after, what he wanted to do. Rick Smith, who's the composer that works with him a lot, was brought in as musical director. So I was working for Rick. And I liked the fact that, okay, we've got an idea what we're going to do. We have no idea how we're going to do it, and we don't know how it's going to end up. That for me was just like great. But it's 1,000 drummers, and we've got this creative concept that we have no idea where we're going to end up. So anyway,
Wow.
I had a talk to Ralph about it. Ralph was absolutely adamant. He was fine with it. Ralph was out touring as well at the time with someone else, and he was also involved in the Olympics, as was Paul Clarvis.
Right. Yeah.
And basically that was the start. And we did, I think, 7 months of rehearsals, all building up to that live show. Now I have to say that the strange part about it was, so everything was done on ears. That's how we did that show. So you talk to everybody individually. There was 9,000 people with in-ears in, and different departments, so dancers or people that were clearing this would say to these people, right, okay, group A, and you know what you were, walk to the right, group, put one arm up in the air, blah, blah, blah. And that's how we did the drummers. But about 6 weeks before, again, Claire said to me, oh, Danny needs you in tomorrow. This is on a Sunday. I was like, well, I'm not doing the athletes parade. And she said, I think you are now. I was like, oh, right, okay. So the athletes parade, as we all know, and I apologise to anyone that loves the Olympics, is the worst part about the Olympics opening ceremony. That's the time when all the countries come out, they walk around. It may be the first time they get anything. They've got their phones. It takes 2 hours to get that through. So Danny wanted to get it done in an hour and 40 minutes. Okay, so he said, right, what we're going to do is we're going to have drummers playing all the way around the track. And then as each country comes out, we're going to put 10 drummers behind them, and we're going to push them along. Okay, we're going to push them. Their drums are going to be pushing and they're going to be beating. So there's all this energy. I mean, I remember seeing pictures of like 7-foot basketball players with like a 5-foot girl with a drummer pushing them, and he keeps turning around. Anyway, they said, now the problem is, Mike, we want you now to tell the drummers what to play, but we don't know how long the music's going to be. We know what the music's going to be, but for each country, but we don't know how long it's going to be because we don't know how many athletes are going to play. So live, in front of, I think somebody told me it was 4 billion audience. I had to tell the drummers live in their ears not only what to play, which hands to play, but for an hour and 40 minutes. So I had to also be aware of what I've just said to you about, 2-hour gig. Okay, hang on a minute. They're gonna have to have breaks. We've got to fit in little breaks. Or so I
Wow.
literally was in the control room. Michelle Obama, the Queen, they were all sitting in front of us, and I was in the control room. There's a picture on my wall now. It's the only memory I've got from it of me with, and I had screens in front of me, and I would have to tell the drummers what to play live. So that was pretty scary.
Oh my God. Yeah, a little bit. Oh my. Hey, I'm sorry. That's an incredible story. But you just speaking of the Queen, I think you might have a pretty funny
Well,
story about the Queen.
I've got a couple of Queen stories.
God save the Queen. We're talking about the
God
Queen of
save the
England,
Queen.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, this means something to any English viewers and not American viewers, but I would not boo the national anthem at sporting events, which happened this weekend. But anyway, so the Queen obviously had a presence at the Olympics this year. She jumped out of that helicopter, as everyone knows, and she did that. Of course, that was her with Daniel Craig, obviously.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
I've got a couple of stories to say about the Queen. So first of all, there was so we did 3 days. It was a new stadium that got opened, and when you open a new stadium, you have to open it first of all with 20,000 people, then 40,000 people, then 60, and then the opening ceremony we had 80. So they did 3 dress rehearsals, and the passes went to NHS or the army or whatever. And so I had to for the athletes parade, I had to come up the back of the area, up the stairs, and then if the stadium was, let's say the stadium's there, the control room was there. There was a corridor running to let you in, and the corridor was just a corridor, blank wall, and the girl was sitting outside the corridor. And so the first day I run up and I said, oh, and she would check my pass to go into the main room, into the control room. Anyway, she's sitting there, and the first day I sort of acknowledged her and I said, oh, you've got the bad job, because she's just standing there, can't see anything. She's facing a blank wall. So she said, yeah, but I'm hoping, my boss said that maybe the next one, I'll be able to stand out on the concourse and I can see what's going on. But it's swap. So I said, oh, great. Anyway, next rehearsal, come running up the stairs. She's there again. I'm like, oh, you're joking. She says, no. She says, I can't believe it. But my boss has said that hopefully the next one. Anyway, we get to the Olympics, the opening ceremony of the Olympics. And I come up the stairs hoping that she's not going to be standing there, or she's sitting there in a chair. There she is. I was like, and she's about 20 years old, this kid. And she's playing on her phone. And I was like, ah. And I was hoping she'd get to see it. She said, it's fine. You never guess what happened. And so the control room, let's say, is facing here, overlooking the stadium, blank wall. And to this end is a door, and it's just a corridor. So about an hour into the ceremony, the door opens, 2 security guards come through, out come all the royal family, the Queen, Charles, all of them. She's the only one in the corridor. The corridor is about, I don't know, 8 foot wide. So it wasn't, and the Queen looked at her and said, good evening. And so this girl was like, she couldn't believe it. I mean, she said, I'm going to tell that story to people for years, and no one's ever going to know. And my other story, which Danny Boyle's openly discussed now and talked about, was the Olympic Stadium was a dry zone. So all the celebrities, all the talent that performed, there was no alcohol in the building. And because the opening ceremony, at the end of the opening ceremony, we'd finished. So the entertainment team had finished. The drummers went on to do the closing ceremony, but I wasn't involved in that. But Danny had 4 bottles of champagne at the end of the night. And we were like, how did you get that in? Paul McCartney couldn't get anything in. How did you get that in? Anyway, he didn't let anyone know for a while, but we've since found out, because he's told people this now. I think he's told people on the interview, that when the Queen and Daniel Craig jumped out the helicopters, the 2 stuntmen brought in 2 bottles of champagne each. So they had them down their boots. So we always say the Queen and James Bond brought in alcohol into the London opening ceremony. So there you go.
That's great. That is great. Oh, I have a Queen story. I won't. It's maybe too long to tell, and I might have told you this, but the long and short of it is this: I was staying in Windsor at the Castle Hotel. This would have been 2006, 2007. I don't remember the actual date year, but I was on one of my many trips over, because we used to have Zildjian had an office in Sunningdale. I'd stay in Windsor quite often, and it overlapped. I was there on a Sunday in March, and it happened to be what you guys call Mothering Day. Is that
Mother's Day, yeah,
Mother's Day? And
yeah,
that's a couple of months before we have it in May. It was in March, and it was a Sunday. I went out for a run, and I ran. I think it's Windsor Park or the park that's
yeah,
adjacent to the castle. And as I'm running down this narrow dirt road, I ran, I think, a couple of miles. And as I'm running back in the other direction to finish my run, I hear a car coming behind me, pretty quickly. I could hear it, in the gravel. And I'm like, "Oh, this car's, so I sort of pulled off to the right side of the road, just thinking it was really coming fast on me. A black Audi station wagon sped by me really fast and like actually kicked up dirt at me as it went by. And there were people walking their dogs and just walking. It was a nice morning. And I saw these people getting on their phones and going, "It was the Queen. I'm telling you, it was the Queen." Like telling people and she was, and I swear I saw the back of a woman's head.
brilliant.
As she went by, I saw the side, but I couldn't have. And as I thought about it, I'm thinking, I think it was the Queen. I think it really was. So anyway, I almost got run over by the Queen, is what I'm
That's
getting
good
at.
news, isn't
Yeah.
it? Look at that. And that was
I,
before she was bringing alcohol into the Olympic Stadium.
it was before I called. In fact, I think I called Tina Clark, and told her, and she got a kick out of it, and I think she said something like, the Queen was in Windsor at that time. She was not in London, and at the castle, and so anyway.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah. Anyway, but so many more things. I want to, as we run out of time here, Mike. I want to talk to you about. Well, there's something that's happening right now that we're going to get to in a minute, the Drumathon Live. But just what I remember throughout the years, and I know things have changed quite a bit in the industry, but you were a promoter, and organizer of some incredible clinic tours with some great drummers, and maybe just take a minute and talk about some of the guys that you've traveled with. Like I know you mentioned Horacio.
I've got to look on the wall.
Yeah, Keith
Um,
Carlock, I think you did
yeah, we did
something with.
Carlock, Steve Smith, Jojo Mayer, Mark Giuliana, Virgil Donati, Aaron Spears, Thomas Lang, Billy Ward, Gavin Harrison. Yeah, I did those originally because, again, it was just no one else was doing it
Yeah,
at the time. And I just wanted to do something a little bit more special than turning up in the car, artist carries his drums in, sits down, 30 people and the dog turns up. I wanted to do like a proper show.
yeah,
So
sure.
we had proper posters done, and the other thing was that I think when I first did it, which would have been about 20 years ago, it was with Thomas Lang, and it was the year that he did that. His first book came out, and he had the big drum kit, etc., etc. And as you know, Thomas Lang is a dear friend of mine and
Mm.
used to live very, very closely to me in London at the time. And again, we've known each other when he was doing all the pop gigs, long before he became Thomas Lang,
Yeah, the
and
drum god.
he was
Yeah.
the drum guy, and he was playing everywhere. He was doing something like 200 dates, but nothing in England. And I was like, well, that's how difficult can it be to put on a clinic tour? Well, to be honest, it was pretty tricky. But it goes back to again what I've just said to you. Learning skills. Um, and so it started from there. And then I tried to do one once a year. I
Mm.
think I'm right in saying, in fact, I know I'm right in saying that I was the first person to do Aaron Spears, Benny Greb, Ash Sohan.
Yeah.
You look at these guys now and you think, wow, hang on a minute. And what I've always tried to do there is again is I tried to do this with the drum shows that I put on as well in my room. They're not. I tried to put on people that people don't often get to see. Instead of the normal names, and
Yeah.
again, don't get me wrong, we love the normal names, but I'm trying to get other people. It's the same with the Young Drum of the Year event that I do for 20 years. If we don't promote the new talent and the youngsters, none of us have got a future. It's
Yeah.
it it's all about that, again, to quote Sir Vic Firth, Vic always used to say, it's the teachers, the drum teachers that are teaching the beginners are the most important people. Because if they don't teach those beginners and get the excitement in them, none of us have got a career. And there's nothing else going on. They're coming through. And so I tried to do that with those drummers. I'd take a punt. I would contact the shops. Most of the shops would always sort of go, you know what, Mike? Okay, we're going to go with this. Now, don't get me wrong. Keith Carlock, Steve Smith, Virgil Donati, people like that, they're not taking a punt on that.
Yeah.
But
they're known commodities. Yeah.
they're no. I think that unfortunately, and I've done that with the drum shows. We've just done the UK drum show. Again, there's a lot of people that I had in my room that maybe people may have heard of, never seen them. Now they've seen them and gone, oh, hang on a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know, Ash Sohan, when you guys saw him at Frankfurt for the first time and was like, what? I mean, the guy's been around for 30 years, but all of a sudden, they're not in, they think he's suddenly appeared. And it's like, no, Thomas Lang, I remember him, I probably knew him 10 years before MikeDolbear.com, before, like I said, he became Thomas Lang, but Thomas was doing all the pop gigs in the UK. He was playing with all the pop artists in the UK. And then, of course, he becomes... that's why I did those. Again, it goes back to everything I keep saying. I wasn't confident with it. I was just like, okay, we could do that. And I think that I talked to our friend, Mr. Joe Tester, again, who we've known for a very long time. I talked to Joe about this, and I think that maybe the reason that I get on with so many drummers that maybe other people, I'm connected with so many drummers that a lot of people can't. You could talk about Steve Smith, or you could talk about Steve Gadd, or you could do about Stuart Copeland. I've been fortunate enough. Stuart invites me up to the house, and I go off and we do silly videos. And I think that it goes back to, first of all, they trust me. I'm not after anything. Right. You know this. If you're Steve Gadd, everybody wants something from Steve. And I think he appreciates and respects that actually you don't want anything from me. We can just hang out. If I say something to you, it's not going anywhere else. It's not and I think that I pride myself that I've built that trust. Even on Saturday, you're going to talk about Drumathon Live. Saturday, I did started Drumathon Live. I had Matt Helders on from the Arctic Monkeys. He came on in the morning of me putting him on, doing the live chat, because I'd announced it. The BBC got in touch with me. The NME got in touch with me, going, we're after the name of the album when it's released. And I was like, I'm not going to ask him that. He doesn't want to, we'll talk about it, but I know he doesn't want to talk about that. And then they're like, oh, can you give me his details? I'm like, no, go through management.
Yeah.
Charlie Watts is a great example, isn't he? Absolutely. My experience of meeting Charlie. He still thinks my name's Mark, unfortunately. I don't think he ever got round to realising it wasn't Mark. And that's fine, he's Charlie Watts. But that is what those, at the end of the day, I think if you can't be honest and trustworthy, then we haven't got anything, and I'm not that guy that wants to be the first person that puts a tabloid news story up on my Instagram because I might get 20 more people. I couldn't give them, I don't care. Couldn't care less. I've never run MikeDolbear.com like that. Not interested in putting gossip stories up there. I want to promote drumming and drummers for what is good about it. And I think that's why those clinic tours, coming back to that worked, because those drummers, we could sit in the car, again, I've been talking to Steve for 7 or 8 years to try and make things happen. And maybe, hopefully one day it will. Again, another dear friend of both of ours. I was fortunate enough to go up and see Hal Blaine a few times. And I was again fortunate enough to go up there and see him the year that he passed, and that meant so much to me. These were my idols, and then it's down to me now as an educator. It's my responsibility to tell the younger drummers, right, listen, you need to know about these guys. This is where, and it goes back to that question. It goes back to what I keep saying. It's not important about how they do it. Why? Why did you do that, Hal? Well, actually, I heard Alvin Jones. Well, why did Alvin do it? Well, actually, I heard, let's go, let's get it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I think that's great. I mean, the fact that you're imparting all this information from a generation before us that, or from the, the influences that we had that the younger kids, I hate to sound like,
No, but we are.
but yeah, but they wouldn't know about them otherwise, more than likely. I remember when I was still working at Zildjian we'd go in and do these sort of focus groups or talk to some students at Berkeley College in Boston, and a fair number of younger students didn't really know who Tony Williams was. And this was only 10 years maybe after he died, by the sort of like mid 2000s. It was kind of like they knew who Travis Barker was, they maybe knew who Dave Grohl or Taylor Hawkins were, but yeah, so you as a teacher, you have that responsibility of passing that along. And I was just thinking the story about Mark, because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
I think for a little while after you told me that story about Charlie Watts,
Oh,
I think
Charlie
I called
Watts.
you Mark for a while just to bust your chops.
So quickly, let's just tell that story that I was running the drum course in the UK called the Ultimate Drum Experience, and Steve Smith had just been in, and I'd
Yeah.
gone back to the hotel to pick up some cases with my kids. Charlie Watts came in, walked up behind me. I'd never met Charlie. Tapped on the drums. He goes, drummer, drummer. And we started talking. And then he said to me, I told him I'd had Steve Smith over. And as you know, he was a massive Steve Smith. And he was like, look, I want to come to this drum course next year. I want to come to it. So I said, well, look, that's fine. He said, I'll pay. I was like, Charlie, it's fine. I'll be more than happy. Anyway, I'm cutting the story very short. And I think he passed me on his phone number then. Actually, I think it was then he gave me his phone number, his home number at the time. But about 6 weeks later, I went to PASIC, and I think I turned up in the room, and you come up to me and you said, "Did you meet Charlie Watts the other day?" I was like, "Yeah." He went, "I thought it was you." He phoned me up and he said, "I've just met this guy called Mark." He said, "This guy Mark." He said, and you're going, "Mark, I don't know a Mark." He says, "Yes, you do, Mark. He's got no hair." And you went, "Mike." He went, "No, Mark." And so that's what we stuck with, didn't we?
Yeah, he did, and he said, and he was a little bit mad at me for not telling him that
Telling
Steve
you,
Smith
yeah.
was. Yeah, he said Steve Smith. Steve Smith was playing, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's Mike Dolbear," and he puts together this drum camp, and it's great. And yeah, I know, because I think it was not long after I brought him to see Steve, at a club in Boston, and he just flipped out and became the biggest Steve Smith fan,
Yeah.
like from that. But so, anyways, it was the timing was perfect, and I remember that. Yeah.
Well, he was due. I don't know if we ever
Yeah.
talked about this, but I spoke to him a couple of times on his phone because I didn't know that the connection with the area that I put this, which was Owl Street, the connection was his daughter, his granddaughter, I think, may have been in a local hospital at the time. So that was a coincidence. But he
I think
contacted
so.
me a
Yeah.
couple of times because he wanted to come along to the next drum camp. And he kept saying, "I'll pay." I was like, "Charlie, I don't want your money. You don't need to pay me." I said, "It's an honour for you to sort of come along." And but unfortunately, other things got in the way, and he didn't come to the camp, etc., etc. But yeah, so I'm fine with being called Mark. That's Charlie Watts. That's cool. Mark is fine.
Yeah, for him, I know. I take
Yeah.
him calling me Joe. It's
There
fine.
you go.
Yeah.
Whatever he wants, whatever you call me, it's fine.
Well, Mike, I know I knew the time was going to go by quickly, but I do want to take just another moment. You mentioned the Drumathon Live, and you'd mentioned it's like a 7-day a week, 24 hours per day drumathon, and it's you've already raised. I don't want to be away from the microphone. £6 million it's raised so far, right?
Yeah.
To
So
date.
I just have to first of all, Drumathon Live has been going for 3 years. It's
Okay.
not my event. I've known about it for the last couple of years. Errol and Bev, who set it up a couple of years ago, set it up to try again to do something during COVID. And it's now, as you just said, it started on the 14th. It's been going from the 14th of May till the 21st of May. Drumathonlive.com. You can see what's going on. There's over 50 drummers, and they're playing the drums non-stop for 7 days. So I said,
Fantastic.
they asked me if I'd get involved, and I said I would. I'd love to get involved. And they had a couple of ideas that they wanted me to do, but I also was like, I want to do something slightly different. I don't know how, and I also want to try and raise the profile of what the event. And you're right, £6 million been raised this year. It's for the Variety webs, Variety, which is a children's charity for children's mental health and for children's bereavement. So again, as I said before, if we don't look after the youngsters, then none of us have got a future, you know. And we all know mental health, unfortunately, affects our industry horrendously. And the last 2 years, the numbers have just gone through the roof with children with mental health. So
Yeah.
I was in.
Yep.
You know, as soon as they said to me, I was like, look, I'm in. You sold it to me. So basically, I said I want to do something different. So I decided that because Tommy Igo, who's been on this show with you,
Hmm.
young
I love
Tommy,
Tommy. Yeah.
um, he at the beginning of lockdown, pretty much the same week or within when I started my live Instagrams 4 times a week, he started his pad exercise. So I thought, you know what, I want to do something for Tommy. I'm going to play the practice pad for 2 hours and get people to join in on the live website, and my live Instagram is going as well. And I'm going to interview some drummers. Tommy Igo was obviously my first guest, so that was horrendous. And you can see all this. You can see now. It's actually not on because we did it live on Drumathon, but it is on my Instagram, which is mikedolbear.com. So Tommy came on. I'm playing. Then Matt Halders came on from the Arctic Monkeys. So we're both sitting there. He's one side, I'm the other one. And then we had Simon Hansen from Squeeze. Okay, so Simon Hansen came. He was in the studio with me. We had a great studio in London, and then I was finished with Ash Sohan, who's currently in America, obviously touring with Tori Amos.
Yeah. Tori
Um,
Amos. Yeah.
and then and Errol and Bev, who were running the charity, were with me. Anyway, so I only did 2 hours, and then next week on the 21st, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. So work that one out for yourselves. I'm going to do the same again, live in the studio in London, Tile Yard. I haven't announced my guests yet, so I'm not going to announce them here, but
Okay.
I'll announce them online. But also, it's the final part. So I've invited 15 of the Olympic drummers down, and they're going to play as well, and we're gonna finish like that. But I have to just say that I'm literally
Wow.
doing 4 hours. There's a guy right now that's been playing non-stop for 24 hours, and I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about songs, and he's playing. He's going for it. Okay.
Wow.
So like I said, it's not my event. I'm just doing a tiny little bit of a contribution, because I think that it's important that these people, they just started that event just because they wanted to do something, like we all did. We
Yeah.
want to
Yep.
do something. We don't know what. And Errol, he did the first one, and he played for 3 days non-stop. Okay. Errol was the drummer from and founder member of Imagination, a big 70s disco band. Um, and like I said, I just thought, look, I've got to do something, and I don't want to just play for that amount. I want to do something a little bit different. So anyway, so drumathonlive.com. You can go on there now. You
Fantastic.
can look see what's going on. It changes. There's a schedule there, and I'm going to be running mine via Drumathon Live and my live Instagram. And the reason for my live Instagram running is because I want to raise awareness, and so
Yes.
hopefully
Yep.
Matt Halders fans that came in, I think there was 11,000 of them that came to listen to Matt, will then find out about Drumathon Live. So anyway, drumathonlive.com. I think they're calling it Drum, Dance and Donate. But again, I'm not saying to people go out there and donate, because a lot of this as well is about awareness. Everyone's got
Yeah.
their charities that they look after, but they're doing really good stuff, and raising a lot of money for what I think is a really good cause.
That's great. No, Mike, you've always had a big heart when it comes to that stuff, Mike, and the industry. I think I speak for everybody when I say we all appreciate what you obviously put in a lot more than you get out of it monetarily, and that's huge. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
one
you
of the
very
good
much.
ones. And people can
Well,
follow you on MikeDolbear.com on your Instagram page, right? That's your,
yeah.
you have a personal, but that's your sort of Mike
That's
Dolbear.
that's yeah, that's my. I have got a personal one, but it's MikeDolbear.com that I do everything from.
Yeah.
You might accidentally find out about my running blogs on there as well. I do apologise about that, but it keeps you, John, in check, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I can't keep up with you. With
Oh,
your
give it a rest.
running. I think that was one of the first things we really connected on too, was being runners. And except you'd say, I just ran 12 miles this morning. And I'd say, I ran
Yeah, but you could
5.
do it. I can't anymore, John.
I,
I think I've done a couple of marathons for charity, and now I'm like, wow, how did I do those marathons now? Why did I do those marathons? I was 6'7". I'm now like 5'7". I mean, it's like,
well, I'm
but
glad
it's
it's not
good.
just me.
But it's good for our mental health, though, isn't it? For
It
me,
is. Yeah.
running is for me. I don't struggle, luckily, with my mental health. But I think running has always been that. It's just my time, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I like to go for a run. I like to put an audio book on.
Yeah.
I'll do a shout out. I've just listened to the Dave Grohl audio book, which is
Oh,
incredible,
yeah.
because he reads it, and in between the chapters he plays as
Oh,
well.
that's
So it's
cool.
like brilliant.
Yeah.
So I like to listen to biographies, or I like to learn stuff. So I always like to run with an autobiography or biography or book. And just, I don't know. I mean, I'm very fortunate now, like you, live in a very nice place. But
Mm.
I've done it. I've always done it when I first used to go out on tour. I used to just run because I never used to see anything anyway. So
Yeah.
I used to just get and run, and I love it. So
That's great. Well, keep doing it,
that's a
buddy. Keep doing it. And thank you so much for being here. And people can also visit your website, mikedolbear.com. Track you down there. And again, like we said, follow you on Instagram. And yeah, this has been a blast as always.
well.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. I interrupted. Go.
No,
It's
I was
your
just going
show,
to say,
not mine.
no, I was just going to say, I hope I get to see you later this year. I missed the UK drum show this year. I'm hoping to go next year. But I'm hoping to be in London, toward the end of the year. And I know you don't live in London anymore, but I'll get in touch and maybe we'll get to see each other in person.
Yeah, definitely come down and see us. You know how fond I am of you and your wife and her family. And keep up the good work. And
Thanks, my friend.
all you've got to do now is learn how to play your drums properly and put them the right way round. I mean,
This
come
way.
on. Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
good.
what's going on? Well,
I know.
seriously,
I know.
you had the wrong teacher, didn't you? Obviously. He's
That's the problem.
left-handed, by the way. Just in case no one knows, he does play correctly. He's left-handed.
Ah, well,
But
if only
your
that.
kids. Sorry, go on.
If that was my only problem, I'd be happy. The fact that I'm left-handed, that's just the least of my problems. But
But
with
looking
my
at your
drumming,
drum kit in the background, it is the right way round for me.
I do keep up my other kit is set up right-handed, and that's the kit that I practice on. But
Okay.
I'm trying to play a little bit, a little bit right-handed and even open-handed on a right-handed set. So
Yeah.
I'm making my
You got to
way.
get that. You got to get that. You know how to start? Start cleaning your teeth with the opposite
Oh,
hand. It's a
with
good
my
way to
right hand.
train.
Yeah,
Yeah. Me with my left. It's a good way.
that's a great
When you've ripped all your gums to pieces, okay, you soon learn that. And that was a Kenny Clare trick. Kenny taught me that. Kenny was the first guy
Wow.
back in the 70s. Was the first person to say, right, great, now do it left-handed. You're like, what?
Wow.
Left-handed? He's like, yeah, play it left-handed. Play that Freddie Freeloader. Now do it left-handed. And you're like, what? So I've been doing it since then, playing
That's
both
great,
ways. Yeah.
man.
So anyway, get those kits set up the right way before I see you next time.
I will. All right. Everybody, big hand for Mike Dolbear.
No,
Mike, thanks
thank you,
so
John.
much. My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you if anyone's watching. Thank you, my mum. No, sorry. Listen, John, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. Please give your wife a big kiss for me,
I will. Thank you.
and Tracy, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Sounds great. Sit tight, and I'll end the stream and we'll say goodbye. But I want to tell everybody how much my family thinks the world of you too. They, my wife and my sister-in-law think the world of you, as did their dad. So
Thank you.
cheers. All right. Thanks for watching,
Okay.
everybody. Big hand for Mike Dolbear, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching.